All right, everyone, for the sweat solder money clip, I've already made my design and cut out my metal. Here I have some brass that I put through the roll mill. I have a texture on it and I cut it out. I'm going to clean it on the gray nylon wheel, really smooth out the back and clean it well. Then I'm going to go in the back room with my teacher and she's going to help me measure and cut a piece of metal for the clip part of the money clip. Now I have my design that will fit on top of the clip. Now I'm ready to do the first step in the sweat soldering process. I'm going to flip over my design so the back is up and I'm going to spray some flux on it. Then I'm going to take some small pieces of easy solder and spread them out around the back of my piece of metal. I'm going to turn on my torch. I'm using a 180-0 torch tip and I'm going to start heating from above, from far away. I don't want to get too close too fast. Once the flux has turned white and crusty, I can move my torch tip closer and I'll see the solder pieces start to ball up and then puddle out, like beads of sweat. Here, you can see it. I'm going to then quench my metal in the water and I can see that my solder has melted down. I'm then going to take my piece of metal and put it in the pickle. Remember, I have pickle reminders above the pickle to help you understand what your next step will be. While I have my metal soaking in the pickle, I'm going to take my strip of metal for the clip part of the money clip, and I'm going to file the corners so they're rounded. I really want to round those corners nicely so it'll be comfortable to put the money clip in and out of my pocket. After I round the corners with a file on a V-block, I'm going to take some steel wool and steel wool the surface on both sides of my money clip, holding my metal on a piece of canvas. Look at how shiny this is. Shiny, smooth, and clean. I'm only going to hold it on the sides now. Then I'm going to go back to the pickle and I'm going to pull out my piece of metal with the copper tongs and walk it to the sink before I touch my metal. I'm going to rinse it in the water before I touch my metal. There. Now I'm going to steel wool my metal. After the pickle, I want to steel wool the metal to make sure I have any residual pickle off of the metal and it's back to shiny. I want to flatten my metal too, just to make sure that this piece is nice and flat. I'm doing that with a mallet on a steel plate. Now it's time for the second step of sweat soldering. I have screens in the back on a tripod with a hole burned through it. I want to put my strip of metal on the screen and the part of the metal that's going to solder the design, the piece I cut out on top of it, I want that over the hole. So I flexed my metal and I took my piece of metal here that I already added solder to the back of and I put it on top of the strip of metal on top of that hole in the screen. Make sense? Now I'm going to light up a 180-0 torch and I'm going to start from far away above it and you can see the flux is turning white and crusty. Once that happens, I'm going to turn my torch upside down and get to the hottest part of the torch tip right underneath my metal. You'll notice I'm moving in a circular motion underneath the two pieces of metal that I want to connect. You'll see it's getting red hot too. You might need to push it down with a poker just to make sure it's fitting correctly and there's no gaps in there. I'm pushing down with that poker and you can certainly have a friend help you with that step as well. Once I'm done, I'm going to quench it in the water, and I like to do what I call the fingernail test. I try to see if I can run my fingernails between the two layers of metal, because if I can pull it apart, it's not soldered down completely, and I'll have to pickle it and try again. Since my money clip has both copper and brass, and I'm completely done soldering, I need to soak it in a super pickle. I notice the super pickle I have here now is a little blue, so I need to go rinse it down the drain with baking soda and water, and then clean out the dish and make some new super pickle. Remember, super pickle is a green scoop of pickle and a green scoop of hydrogen peroxide. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Then I'm going to put my money clip that has brass on it into the super pickle and soak it for about 5 to 10 minutes. Now I really heated my money clip. If I notice after about 10 minutes that my pickle is back to blue, it's turned blue, but my brass color isn't really brass yet, I need to make another super pickle. So I would then dump it down the drain again with warm water and baking soda and mix yet again another super pickle and soak my metal in it for another 5 to 10 minutes. That should take care of it. Super pickle takes a little longer because it's diluted with the water and the hydrogen peroxide, and I also don't have it heated. I have it in a separate glass dish. So I'm making another super pickle to soak my money clip in, and this time I think it'll work. I think the brass color will come back to brass. There, it looks good. I still see a little bit of copper around it, but that's going to clean off. So I'm going to rinse it and dry it, and now I'm going to clean this on the yellow 80 grit sanding wheel on the first polishing box. So I've opened my vent, and I've tied my hair back, I have goggles and mask, and I'm going to clean my metal with the yellow 80 grit sanding wheel. If I can't quite get all of the solder spills out that are around my top piece of metal on the money clip strip, I can go to the sanding wheels at the flex shaft, and I can start with a white wheel, and I can get in closer around the edges to get any solder spills off that might be there. Remember to change out whatever tool's in the flex shaft with the key, turn it to the left, pull out the mandrel if it's in there, and put in the sanding wheel, and then make sure to tighten it with the key. And now I can use the flex shaft to clean my metal. After I've cleaned it on either the yellow 80 grit wheel or the flex shaft wheels, I'm going to take it to the gray nylon wheel and really smooth out the whole money clip, the front and the back with this gray nylon wheel. Remember, that gives me a nice matte finish. Now remember, before I go to polish it, after I use that gray wheel, I want to steel wool it first by hand. I'm pushing that steel wool really hard onto my metal and trying to get in all the crevices of where the two pieces are soldered together. And I'm going to steel wool on the front and the back of my money clip, making sure I put my metal on a piece of canvas while I'm steel wooling. And then I want to polish. I'm going to the blue Luxie first. Goggles, mask, hair tied back, nothing dangling or long near the wheel. And I'm going to polish on the blue Luxie. Wash it with dish soap. Then I'm going to polish it after I dry it on a piece of cotton on the red Luxie. Same thing, this should be familiar. Any black on there will wash off with the dish soap. So I want to make my money clip super duper wonderful, yummy, shiny. Last step, almost finished. I'm going to take the money clip and put it on a steel plate, and I'm going to push it down so I can bend it then by hand in half. You see I kind of have a loop there. I'm going to take my mallet if that loop is way too big, and I'm going to kind of smush it with a mallet. And then I'm just going to take my hand and either bend the top or the back of the money clip to give it a little bit of a curve.